David Chen, the chief innovation officer at a global manufacturing company, was puzzled. His R&D teams were structured perfectly on paper, the right expertise, clear objectives, adequate resources. Yet breakthrough innovations remained elusive. It wasn't until he attended a workshop on quantum leadership that something clicked. In quantum physics, the facilitator had explained, the space between particles, what we once thought was empty, is actually full of potential energy and possibility. The same is true in organizations. The magic doesn't happen in the formal structures, but in the field of relationships and possibilities that exists between them. This insight transformed David's approach. Instead of focusing solely on team structures and processes, he began paying attention to the quality of connections and the field of possibilities surrounding his teams. Within a year, his division had produced more breakthrough innovations than in the previous 3 years combined. The 4 quantum principles of leadership. Just as quantum physics revealed fundamental principles about how the universe works at its deepest levels, quantum leadership is built on 4 core principles that describe how human systems actually operate. Understanding and working with these principles can transform your effectiveness as a leader. Principle 1, Interconnectedness. Everything is connected in the quantum world. Particles that have once interacted remain connected, influencing each other instantaneously across any distance. Physicists call this entanglement. Einstein famously referred to it as spooky action at a distance. In organizations, this principle manifests as decisions in one area creating unexpected ripples throughout the system. Informal relationships often having more influence than formal structures. Culture shaping behavior across distance and time. Small changes catalyzing large-scale transformations. Research spotlight. Studies at MIT's Human Dynamics Laboratory have shown that patterns of communication between people are better predictors of team success than individual intelligence, personality, skill, or the content of their discussions. This research demonstrates how the field of relationships, the organizational equivalent of quantum entanglement, determines outcomes more than individual components. Practical application. Instead of focusing solely on formal reporting lines, quantum leaders map relationship networks. Pay attention to informal influence patterns. Strengthen connections across organizational boundaries. Consider the ripple effects of decisions. Principle 2, Uncertainty as opportunity. In quantum physics, Heisenberg's uncertainty principle states that we can never simultaneously know both the position and momentum of a particle with perfect accuracy. This isn't a limitation of our measuring instruments, it's a fundamental property of reality. In leadership, this principle teaches us that perfect prediction is impossible in complex systems. Attempting to eliminate uncertainty can stifle innovation. The future exists as a field of possibilities. Uncertainty creates space for creativity and emergence. Research spotlight. Research from Harvard Business School shows that companies that maintain strategic flexibility in the face of uncertainty consistently outperform those that try to predict and control outcomes. The most successful leaders treat uncertainty as a resource rather than a threat. Practical application. Quantum leaders create containers for experimentation. Maintain strategic flexibility. Use scenario planning instead of fixed forecasts. Foster comfort with ambiguity. Principle 3, Energy fields and influence. In quantum physics, particles don't interact through direct contact but through fields, invisible forces that permeate space and influence behavior. Similarly, leadership influence operates through fields of culture, expectations, energy, attention. Research spotlight. Daniel Goleman's research on emotional contagion demonstrates how leaders' emotional states create fields that influence entire organizations. His studies show that up to 70% of employees' perceptions of organizational climate can be traced to the leader's emotional field. Practical application. Quantum leaders consciously manage their emotional state. Create energizing environments. Pay attention to cultural fields. Shape fields of possibility through intention and attention. Principle 4, Nonlinear causality. In the quantum world, change doesn't always happen gradually or predictably. Particles can make quantum leaps, jumping from one state to another without passing through intermediate states. Similarly, organizational change often happens in unexpected leaps rather than linear progressions. This principle manifests as breakthrough innovations emerging unexpectedly, cultural shifts happening suddenly after long periods of apparent stability, small interventions creating large-scale change, transformation occurring through phase transitions rather than gradual evolution. Research spotlight. Complexity. Researchers at the Santa Fe Institute have shown how organizations, like other complex systems, often exhibit punctuated equilibrium periods of stability interrupted by sudden, dramatic change. This matches the quantum pattern of discontinuous change. Practical application. Quantum leaders look for leverage points where small actions can create large changes. Create conditions for emergence rather than forcing change. Pay attention to weak signals that might indicate coming transitions. Work with natural timing rather than arbitrary deadlines. Integrating the principles. These principles don't operate in isolation, they work together as an integrated system. Consider how Sarah, a regional sales director, applied them when faced with declining sales. Instead of just pushing harder on traditional metrics, she 1. Mapped the interconnections between sales teams, support functions, and customers. 2. Created space for uncertainty by encouraging experimentation with new approaches. 3. Focused on the energy field in her region through regular connection sessions. 4. Looked for nonlinear opportunities by identifying potential tipping points. The result: her region not only reversed the sales decline but discovered entirely new market opportunities that wouldn't have been visible through traditional approaches. Hash your quantum leadership practice. Understanding these principles is just the beginning. The real work is learning to apply them in daily leadership. Here are some practices to start with. 1. Field sensing. Take regular field readings of your organization. Notice energy levels and patterns. Pay attention to informal networks. Look for emerging possibilities. 2. Working with uncertainty. Start each day by identifying what's uncertain. Practice making decisions with incomplete information. Experiment with multiple scenarios. Welcome surprises as information. 3. Influence through fields. Monitor and manage your own energy. Create spaces for connection and emergence. Pay attention to the quality of relationships. Shape cultural fields through intention. 4. Leveraging nonlinearity. Look for potential tipping points. Make small interventions in key areas. Notice patterns of change. Work with natural timing. Reflection questions. 1. Which of these principles most challenges your current leadership approach? 2. Where do you see evidence of these principles already operating in your organization? 3. What might change if you fully embraced these principles in your leadership? 4. How could you begin applying one of these principles tomorrow? Practice. Pause, choose one of the principles and spend the next week experimenting with it. Notice what changes in your perception, your decisions, your relationships, your results. Remember, quantum leadership isn't about abandoning traditional skills, it's about adding a new dimension to your leadership. In the next chapter, we'll explore how these principles combine with habits to create sustained leadership effectiveness. Field notes: the quantum principles aren't just theory, they're practical tools for navigating complexity. When I started treating uncertainty as an ally rather than an enemy, everything changed. Innovation increased, stress decreased, and our ability to adapt accelerated dramatically. Elena Rodriguez, CEO, Global Technology